be right back. So at the beginning, that was Life's Eclipse, and then something I wrote in honor of our eclipse, and followed by Philip Wesley's Equestrian Trails. And here's Worth to Tell. Lord Riley. Coming up to Kathleen. Astor.
Uh, Kim, um, you want to just do something really short?
Oh,
Um,
okay. We'll do a little dance.
Great, super, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Uh, and welcome everybody to the April 2024 meeting of Orange County Astronomers. This is our first post-April 8th eclipse meeting, and there have been a number of posts back and forth people may have noticed on our email groups. I hope wherever you were, whatever you were doing, you had a good time with the eclipse, even if it was cloudy, even if it was, whatever might have been going on. Um, just a couple of things before I turn this over. Maybe I should introduce myself. I am Barbara Toy. I am your current president. I realize that some of you may not know who I am, but regardless, I do welcome you to this meeting. And I would say that I did have a wonderful time with the eclipse, even though we were clouded out, except for a few sights of crescent sun just before it went to totality. Um, However, going away from the eclipse for a moment, um, a couple of things I wanted to say before I turn this over to Kyle for the announcements. I've had well, first of all, regarding the eclipse, if you are interested in hearing what members have experienced with it or see pictures that different members have been sharing, and you are not on the OC Astronomers email group, that is a great way to just see what people are posting. And there are a lot of really great pictures that have already been shared. I encourage you, if you are not on that group, to get on that. That's OC Astronomers. I'm sorry, astroimagers at ocastronomers.org. Um, I've had an inquiry about the Orange County Star Parties. We are hoping to start those up again before too long. And we are trying to straighten things out with the county, OC Parks specifically, and deal with some administrative issues. We're hoping that we will be able to set up specific dates, and if so, or when we are able to do that, we plan to put an announcement on the website as well as the Sirius Astronomer, and of course we will be announcing it at the meetings as well. But do keep your eyes open for that. We'll also send out notice on the two email groups for the club. Um, on the general meetings, a lot of you I know are attending by Zoom if you're not there at Chapman University in person. And if you, for whatever reason, are not willing or don't really deal with Zoom well, you should be aware that we have Facebook and YouTube as alternatives. And if you have any questions about how to do that, please check with Raisa. Um, and with that, let me turn this over to Kyle to give you the club announcements. Welcome, Kyle, and have a great meeting, everybody. We're looking forward to the talk.
All right. So, Welcome, new members. You'll find your name badges on the whiteboard there at Chapman University in the next month or two. If you're attending online and you don't pick those up by then they'll be mailed to your home address. The next ANZUS Star Party will be May 4th. The Astrophysics Special Interest Group meeting. The next one will be April 19th at the Heritage Museum, 7 p.m. Beginners class May 3rd at 7:30 online. And the next board meeting will be May 5th at 11:30 a.m. online. Volunteers needed for outreach events. Currently, the outreach program is on hold. We're looking for new volunteers who can assist with this program. If you'd like to help get this program going again, please reach out to us, whether you're interested in being the coordinator, helping to administer, or just volunteer for some events. If you can do any of those things, please contact Alan Smallbone for more information on that. We're also looking for a social media coordinator to help run the Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts. A lot of flexibility in what you want this role to look like. If you're interested in helping out with our social media platforms, please contact Reza for more information on that. Please remember, if you are there at Chapman University, that coffee, donuts, and water are available for purchase by the library entrance. The reminder about the Adopt-a-Scope program that is up and running. You can go online, as shown here, to see the sample adoption agreement along with the current inventory of what the club has. And on that page, there's also much more information about how the Adopt-a-Scope program works. If you have any items that you interest that you would like to have considered for publication in the Serious Astronomer newsletter, please contact Dave Fisher. Things that we look for that are interesting: articles, trip reports, images, advertisements for equipment for sale, etc. Other club news will be in there. If you have anything like that that you'd like published for other club members to see, please contact Dave. Please remember that the newsletter is always available online. Everyone by default receives a mailed paper copy of the newsletter. However, if you'd like to opt out of receiving a paper copy of the newsletter, please let Charlie know with those instructions. Please, as a reminder, to keep the weeds clear at the ANZUS site. Please help keep your pad in the observatory areas clear. And we always appreciate help clearing weeds at other common areas, including the ANZA house and football field. Tonight's moon. The next general meeting will be on May 10th. And this is the remaining lineup tonight, with John Garrett doing the WhatsApp presentation, and Clint Bradford will be our featured speaker, presenting a talk titled "How to Work Amateur Satellites with Your Handheld Radio." Thank you.
Can I put an announcement, please?
Yes, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, thanks. On the June 7th, 8th, and 9th, we're going to be having our usual yearly trip to Owens Valley Radio Observatory. It'll be 2 nights of nice dark observing on Friday and Saturday, and a tour of the facility and some discussion and adventures with the DSA 2000 and 200 telescope. So if you're interested, let me know. We have an information sheet that should be in the newsletter, and of course I can email it to you as well. Again, this is Doug down here in the front row, and signing back to you.
Thank you very much. And we have John here for us to do the WhatsApp presentation. All good, John?
I think so. If you hear me, it's good. So I think all I need to do is share my screen and share the correct one, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, share screen. And I believe I'm sharing it. Do you see something there?
That's right. We see the presentation up and all clear.
Okay, thank you so much. I dearly hoped to have been there in person. I really like showing up and seeing people, but we got a flat tire on the way to the meeting. And thanks to 1990s technology, I was able to call for a tow truck. And thanks to 2000 era technology, I was able to email everyone else on the panel. And thanks to 2020 technology, I was able to get home in time to actually do the show from my laptop upstairs in my office. So anyway, a little overview of what's up for the month. We have 2 meteor showers to look forward to. And the first one coming up is if you count the peak only, the first one approaching is the Lyrid meteor shower. And so they're active from the 14th to the 30th, the last half of the month. The 22nd is the estimated peak, maybe 20 per hour. Unfortunately, the moon is going to be competing with that. So we may miss Lyrids this year because of the moon, but it's always worth having a look. I've actually been able to photograph meteors in the past while there's a full moon, so it's quite possible. The Eta Aquariids, they're active from the 19th through the end of May, and 5th of May is their peak. I've read that they could be anywhere up to 50 per hour, though most people expect maybe something closer to 10. But there's no moon, so it's a good time to get out and watch for meteors. As with most meteor showers, both of these are best viewed in the morning hours. Here's a Lyrid that I captured back in 2017, so I have gotten lucky with the Lyrids. And so this one actually left a debris trail, and it's kind of fun to see what the debris trail did over the time period of like 10 minutes. It actually formed a shape of like a golf club. And so I figured what I did is I captured the different currents in the upper atmosphere, holding it debris trail in different directions. But I even got another meteor with that debris trail still in place. So never know what you're going to catch with meteors. Anyway, there is a comet in the evening sky that's fairly easy to see if you can get out soon enough and you have a low western horizon. And I took this picture with my 85 millimeter lens. It's Comet Pons Brooks. And up in the far left is Jupiter. And you might even be able to see a couple of moons of Jupiter in this picture. But also that cloudiness you see was the rocket launch from last Saturday. So last Saturday, I and my daughter Emma were invited to help out at Sky's the Limit in 29 Palms for their monthly star party. And it turns out I learned that we amateur astronomers are really quite a commodity in demand, especially around the eclipse, because all the other almost anyone who's an amateur astronomer has, vacated the area and they've gone out to Texas or wherever to watch it. And there are very few people to set up scopes. So naturally, I felt like I was in a lot of demand. But we were able to set up for a very nice night. I got all my pictures from tonight's talk that night, including this one of the comet. It's an early evening object. The most frustrating thing is waiting for it to get dark enough while you're watching it getting lower and lower to the horizon. And so here it's not even yet total darkness, but it's about the best time to photograph the comet. The horizon you see in here is artificially high compared to most of what we see. In other words, this vantage point where I was photographing it in 29 Palms at that star party is there's a mountain ridge, and that's what we're looking at here. So you actually have a little more space in the western sky, but not much to work with. And anyway, the comet's path is going to take it near Jupiter. And so as long as Jupiter's visible, you have a pretty good chance of spotting and photographing the comet. And by the end of the month, it should be down here in Taurus. And so here's a picture of Taurus I took Saturday night without the bowl and the green lines around the stars. And you can see Taurus, the shape of Taurus, and the Hyades cluster and the Pleiades. But the comet should be about here toward the end of the month. And I think that artificial horizon that you see of that little mountain down there in the corner, that's artificially high. But I think by the time the end of the month, that's a realistic comparison of how low the comet will be to anyone trying to see it, even if you have a pretty good low western horizon. Anyway, some things about the evening that, by the way, I put this in here just to remind others that I often forget to say what telescope I'm using for the deep sky images I photograph, but these are the 2 telescopes that I use. When I say a 3-inch, it's that white one that you see riding piggyback. And when I say an 8-inch, it's that Schmidt-Cassegrain. And all other shots that I'm going to show you were taken with a 24 millimeter lens on a wide field shot just on camera. And so here's starting with Taurus. We go a little bit to the left of Taurus, you'll see Orion. Last chance to see anything in Orion. So these constellations are setting quickly. And if you go a little farther, you see Orion's faithful companion hiding behind him as he fights the bull. And all of these constellations are dipping in the west, so we say goodbye to them about this time of year. Going back to Orion, though, and you point upwards a little bit, I was reminded that even though there's other objects way overhead, you always need a few evening objects that are fairly low and easy to point a Dobsonian telescope at. And so this is what I ended up pointing at the star party Saturday night, because it was just too much work to point at things that were high overhead for me. But I was focusing mostly on the constellation Gemini that still is pretty good height in the sky for getting some good views of items. And Gemini is full of a lot of deep sky objects. And some of the easy ones that most people look at are this little group here, M37, 35, the Cone Nebula and the Rosette Nebula, and they show up pretty well in photographs. And so here's M37, a fairly tight, pleasant cluster that you can see in a small telescope. And M35 also shows up really well. I never see the smaller object in this picture visually, but it shows up nicely in a telescope, that cluster that you see within M35 NGC 2158. And here's the Cone Nebula, also in my 3-inch refractor. And this one also in my 3-inch refractor. I think it was a single frame shot of the Rosette Nebula. And then, so those are a few easy, bright ones near Gemini or in Gemini. And then there's a few other NGCs that I hope to capture maybe this month. Of these, they're much fainter, but I have captured 2420. It's a very tight cluster that you can see here in my 3-inch telescope. And then my favorites, of course, there's a couple, what are they called? Planetary nebula. And I just want to, yeah, a couple planetary nebula in Gemini. The first one shows up fairly well in an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain, visually that is. It has the advantage of having a very bright star next to it. So you can definitely see it by comparing it to the star and saying, oh yeah, that thing next to it definitely isn't a star. So you can see it pretty well in an 8-inch scope, even better, of course, with a larger scope. And here's a view of it with my Schmidt-Cassegrain. And the other one is not obviously I've got some room for improving my image of it here, but this is a double-lobed object, planetary nebula, that was originally misclassified as 2 separate objects, but it's the 2 lobes of NGC 2371, 2372. And then if we take from Gemini, we go a bit higher, and to the south, we'll come to one of those constellations that's at its peak this time of year in the early evening, and that is the constellation Leo, the lion. And also you can see Coma Berenices just behind Leo, a very nice open cluster that's very pleasant to look at through with binoculars. And then Leo offers some great deep sky objects. 2 that I want to add. One is Wolf 359, and the only significance of that is that it's mentioned in Star Trek as the scene of a great battle. And so I was looking through my star charts. I was trying to figure out what was there, and I looked at my star chart and it said Wolf 359. So okay, I had to put that in the drawing. But I hope to maybe spend some quality time and see if I can actually image it. Also, to the right is a carbon star. These things always are so beautiful. They're these beautiful shimmery red color, and it shows up in this little 24 millimeter wide field shot. But I would like to get a more focused image of it soon. But I have taken the time to look at M66 and M65, M105, M96, and 95, and to get those on my 3-inch telescope. They make a great composition for a small telescope. So here's the M65, 66, and NGC 3628. I didn't label which one was which. And then same that here, I didn't label which is which, but here's several other fairly bright galaxies visible in that area. And then if we go from Leo and flip a little bit across the zenith and come to the constellation Ursa Major, which we see as an upside down dipper. And that's part of the lore of the dipper, is that this time of year, in the northern hemisphere, it's raining a lot, so you can imagine the Dipper is spilling out its contents of water that we see as rain, at least for other parts of Northern America. But certainly this year, we've had certainly our share of rain. But the stars that give the Ursa Major its name are actually these stars and really don't have much to do with the Dipper asterism. But these are the stars that give it that bear shape. And I always like looking up at the Ursa Major and finding the bear because it's a very convincing bear to me. It's really nice when a constellation really does look a lot like its name. And so Ursa Major gives us a number of things to look at. And I think I've gotten pictures of all of these, and a lot of them are fairly bright, fairly good for 8-inch or larger telescopes, and certainly show up nicely when you try to photograph them. And so here's a M63. This one I recall is pretty dim, and it doesn't show up well when I look at it visually. But I haven't gotten out to the desert enough to try to look at this. M51, here's a picture I took, a single frame shot with my small telescope. Beautiful, thing to look at, and it does show up. You can see it pretty well at a very dark site in an 8-inch scope. And then this one, I don't recall how easy it is to see, but it's beautiful. M101, and then M106 Galaxy, and then M109 also in that area. And then a couple favorites, M82 and M81. And I quickly reminded myself of my mnemonic for remembering which one is which. I remember that M81 is the bigger one. So M81, bigger one. And then M82 is close, but no cigar. Well, they call that the cigar galaxy. Anyway, beautiful galaxies to hunt down, look at visually and photograph. And then my favorite, the Owl Nebula, M97, a planetary nebula, and then a nice little sliver shaped of M108. And I just really enjoy looking at planetary nebulas and photographing them. They're just things of beauty. So anyway, these are these items that you'll see in the sky. And with the Dipper upside down and the bears upside down, very high overhead. So you're going to get some of your best viewing opportunities now. Now, if we go to the right, following the arrow, following the tail, that's the arc of the handle, takes us to the star Arcturus and its constellation Boötes, one of those that I always fear to pronounce. But I don't see too much interesting in Boötes other than the names of the major stars. So I've listed those there. But just below Boötes is Corona Borealis. And that's going to, I'll talk about that next. But before Corona Borealis, of course, there's a little planetary nebula, NGC 6058. And so I've tried to get that. This is the part where I just find it kind of fun. I set up a 3-inch telescope. I let it soak in a field of stars for a while. And then on my digital camera, if there's a planetary nebula, one of those stars will just pop out as a green star. And of course, we don't see any stars as truly green, so they pop out. But planetary nebulae are different from stars, so we see them, and it's just really exciting, even though it's just a little dot on this particular field of view. Now here's it with my same 3-inch telescope, but I took off my focal reducer, so I'm using prime focus. It comes out a little bigger, and maybe a little bigger here with my Schmidt-Cassegrain. And anyway, so we move on. Here's Corona Borealis, and when I was putting the show together, I realized that my meteor picture of Corona Borealis from 2017 actually points really close to the star T Corona Borealis, which is going to possibly erupt as a nova anytime now. In fact, it could be happening now, and I'd be missing it. But anytime this month or next few months, we're watching for that star. So anyway, here's the constellation Corona Borealis, and here's my meteor, and here's T Corona Borealis, and I just missed it. But I thought it was pretty cool that I've got a meteor that almost points to something that I'm doing in my talk. And so T Corona Borealis is a nova, and it's going to be about there in the sky. And give you an idea what a nova is, I've photographed about 3 other nova in the past. And here's one fairly recently from 2021 with my 3-inch refractor near M52. And so I put together a little animation at the time to show it. So you can see this little dot that shows up and goes away. So one of the photos I took after the nova, one of the other photos was taken during the nova. But it gives you an idea what will happen. You'll just have a field of stars and suddenly there's a new one. But this one has the potential of being magnitude 2. So here's my simulation of how it might look. So if you're looking at Corona Borealis in the eastern sky, rising in the eastern sky, you might see an extra star photobombing the constellation there. So it looks something about like that. And we go on. I'm turning a little more to the right. By the time I got all those pictures, the constellation Corvus, the Crow, had risen fairly high in the eastern sky. I had to turn my camera sideways so that I could photograph all the objects that I want to point out here. Here's the constellation Corvus. Here's the depiction of a crow. I think it's probably disputed how they see a crow in that particular constellation, but that's how I've tried to fit one in there. And there's a few deep sky objects worth looking at there. And these ones will just get better and better as the year goes on because they'll get higher earlier. And so there's M104, the Sombrero Galaxy. And this one, yeah, NGC 4361, that's one of the planetary nebula that's in Corvus the Crow. And when I bring it up, I've got another picture here that leaves lots of room for improvement. But if I get more time on this one, I think this one's going to show up with a lot more texture to it. And so that's always exciting to be able to spend the time to bring out the features of a planetary nebula, but I still need to do that. And then, of course, low in the sky, I don't know if you saw it here, but if you look toward the bottom of the picture, I have that W, the Omega symbol, and that's the Omega Centauri, the brightest, largest globular cluster in the sky. So May is its optimum month to see it. And I wanted to give you an appreciation of how low it is. It doesn't get much higher. And with the kind of weather we're having, it takes good planning to get a good view of it or a good picture of it. But think of from now to June is your prime opportunity to find yourself a southern horizon that's very low. If you can find Corvus, it's going to be right below Corvus, and it looks like this. This is, I think, a single frame shot. So if you spent any time stacking this kind of thing, you'd really, I think it has potential to be quite a beautiful object that you might want as a poster or something on your computer wallpaper. So that's just, again, a little sample of what's in the sky. The more I do these, the more I realize what I'm leaving out. So there's plenty that for everyone else, for all of you to discover. And thank you. So I need to stop share there.
Thank you very much, John, for yet another wonderful presentation. Totally enjoyed all those images. Thank you very much for what you do for us almost every month. That's great. And yeah, we're very thankful that the mishap that you've had didn't end up us losing you. You're losing your presentation. So great.
Thank you.
Okay, so our speaker tonight has been a ham since 1994. He has worked for a number of radio equipment manufacturers and stores. And most importantly, he has served as the liaison between NASA and ARIS team and schools, coordinating amateur radio contacts between the International Space Station and students. Please join me in welcoming Clint Bradford. Clint.
What an intro. Thank you very much, Reza. Let's see, I want to share that. We want to go up here and share some audio. Computer sound. Copy. Hello. In stereo. And play a presentation. Everybody have a out of focus logo right there? Outstanding. Reza, thank you very much. John, what an extraordinary set of photographs. Thank you so much for that. Tonight we're going to talk about working amateur radio satellites. Not quite as high as what John was, not far away from Earth as what John was showing us, only 250 miles above the Earth, with low power, with just a little $30, $40, or $50 amateur radio, handheld radio. First, my disclaimer. Please read this. I'll come back in 10 minutes and talk to you. I'm in California. Please know, what I'm going to tell you about amateur radio satellites tonight might be updated and I won't say worthless, but might be different next week. The ISS, International Space Station, will go into a different mode. We might gain a new satellite. We might lose a satellite. So please, as you cruise the internet, I've got a couple websites for you. Mine, ARIS, ARISS.org, we'll talk about. AMSAT, we'll talk about. And the Amateur Radio Relay League, ARRL. Sites that respect you enough to date what you're looking at. 20 years ago, I was searching easy to work amateur satellites. Found a lot of stuff that was dated. 3 years ago, a scoutmaster called me, a Boy Scout master called me. He was really upset with me. 3 years ago, he had a audience of 500. He wanted to work amateur satellite AO51, which he couldn't work that day. Well, AO51 passed away, end of life, died 9 years ago. But if you search the web for easy to work satellites, it pops up. So make sure what you're looking on the web is dated. Cool. Enough of that. Okay, let's get to Orange County Astronomers. Let's see. There we are. What a wonderful newsletter you're putting out. I'll talk about reaction in a few minutes. Before we begin, though, for those who are Zooming this evening, thank you so much for being there. The folks at the meeting site have some food for them, but please know that Reza has provided food for us this evening. Those who are on Zoom, if you walk out the door and run down the hallway, you'll find a refrigerator. Anything in there is yours. You can eat. Don't make too much noise while you munch on it during our presentation this evening. If you run out the door, go the other way down the hallway, you will find the restroom for this evening's activities, and it's soundproof. Don't worry about it. But as you use the restroom, please. Okay. All right. No more politics, Reza. Honest. Something brand new. John has got his phenomenal telescope. I found my own astronomical find. The distance between the sun and the Earth is the length of 3 CVS receipts. Okay, you're stuck with me. Reza gave me the mic for 4 hours. You're stuck with me. Somebody wearing for you, I'm wearing the Starry Night shirt by Van Gogh. So let's have some fun this evening. You all saw this morning, the Orange County Register. Color photo above the fold. Amateur Radio Satellite Talk at your club this evening. Cool. We see this in Southern California. Are these cool? This is a SpaceX launch from Vandenberg. That's my front yard. I mean, this type of stuff excites me. We can see MECO, we can see main engine cutoff over us. We can see the separation, just really cool stuff. And I'm going to ask John later, what is that object right square in the middle there in that contrail? What was I doing last Monday? My wife and I were at Felipe's Restaurant, 1001 North Alameda, in downtown LA, across from the Union Station. We had our glasses. What was it? About 30% occlusion. It was wonderful. We took extra glasses with us, and we just handed them out to people, complete strangers. It was wonderful. Reza, I heard, "Oh wow," in about 6 different languages in downtown LA. It was great. I'm the same reaction I was having to John's presentation right now. Oh wow! But it was. We had a great time. Did we have a great time, dear?
We had a great time.
You get 2 for the price of 1 this evening. My wife, Karen, is here. She does the audio and will handle the chat box for us. If you have any questions during the presentation, if you're in the room there, just grab that mic and ask. And if you're on Zoom, either interrupt me, that's fine, or put something in the chat box. Karen will take care of you.
Okay, Clint, since you specifically mentioned that you have an audio engineer with you, we're hearing a little bit of echo. Is that something that you can...
Down, sure. You don't like echo. Echo and reverb from the 1960s. I'm that old. Okay, we took care of it, Ray, so thank you.
Thank you.
John, you're familiar with the James Webb Telescope, getting these phenomenal high-resolution images. It's Dr. Jane Rigby, astrophysicist Dr. Jane Rigby's baby. And for Orange County astronomers, I have a special feature this evening. Do you want to know what this phenomenal astrophysicist's favorite joke is? Oh, Raisa does. Why can't you trust atoms? Because they make up everything. That is funny. That is funny. You'll think about it later. That's Dr. Jane Rigby's favorite joke. But oh, somebody laughed. Thank you. Why can we get this? This is 2,000 light years away, further from the meeting place and me tonight. Why can we get this type of resolution 2,000 light years away, John, but we can't do better than that 20 feet away? I don't know what, we got to put some taxpayer dollars into this. Okay. Oh, we're getting some reactions on, and only 3 people have hung up so far. Okay, cool. You recognize this? Oh, this was sad news from Mars. This was sad news from Mars. The Ingenuity helicopter. Anybody remember the movie Babe and Farmer Hoggins and Hoggett. And he'll say, "That'll do. That'll do, pig." Well, my caption for this is, "That'll do. That'll do, Ingenuity." Ingenuity was launched in the belly of the Perseverance and was only meant to perform up to 5 experimental test flights over 30 days. It ended up performing 72 flights over almost 3 years. How much more proud can we be as Americans? We had a operating helicopter on Mars. And like a bad tourist, yeah, the shot of from the Perseverance to the rover, like a bad tourist photo, cut off its head as it turned around and looked at the helicopter. Oh man! And just wow. This was a Photoshop, but just what a phenomenal project. How much prouder could I already talked about that. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. This is not Photoshop. This is not Photoshop. And John recognizes this. We have a couple amateur radio camera phenomenal people out there. You know this pass of the International Space Station against the moon only lasts a couple seconds, but there are people who have extraordinary equipment and do things like this for us. I know all of you were watching the Perseverance land on Mars 3 years ago, and we got that first image. How exciting is that? We went to bed about 1 o'clock our time in the morning. The second image came down. And then the color photos started coming out in a couple days. Oh my God! Look at the. Oh, it's phenomenal. Look at the detail. Anyway, Mesa, Arizona. And on April 1st last year, NASA released where all the lost socks from your dryer are. They are indeed up on Mars. Barbara? A courtesy laugh, Barbara? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Then the Perseverance turned its camera around and shot a picture of Earth. You can just barely see it in there. It's not as high resolution as John's wonderful photographs, but there's the Earth and from Mars. A shot of Earth from Mars. Is that incredible? Is that incredible? Okay. Again, Raisa gave me the mic for 4 hours. If you go to nasa.gov, you'll compete with John's phenomenal photographs to bring back some screensavers and backgrounds, wallpapers. Just phenomenal shots of our International Space Station. Wow. That's not me at the end of the Canadian arm. That's on the ISS. There's the cupola. Just some phenomenal shots. Amateur radio is aboard the International Space Station. It's always been there. A couple of years ago, we had a jumper cable that went to our 2-meter 440 antenna fail. There it actually is. They replaced it within just a couple of weeks for us. We thought amateur radio might be down for quite a while. Almost all astronauts, no matter their country of origin, are amateur radio licensees. So, and we get to talk to them every once in a while too. You're going to hear a lot about vacuuming debris that's 250 to 300 miles above the Earth in low Earth orbit. Everything from a little nut to a screwdriver to a electric drill that was a toolkit to the size of an expended booster. Things you don't want existing satellites to hit, the ISS or the Chinese space station, things you don't want to hit in low Earth orbit. So what's going to happen, this is what's being tracked right now in low Earth orbit only, that we don't want missions we want to survive to hit. Two of my favorite photos from NASA. This is Earth's colorful horizon. This is a silhouette of the Space Shuttle Endeavour in her final mission. This is during Expedition 22, coming towards the ISS. Thank you, NASA, for letting me share this. A lot of similar photos but this one where you can kind of see the little glint of a window. This to me is getting goosebumps, and then even more goosebumps. Someone from Zoom or someone in the auditorium, please unmute yourselves and tell me, what is this apparatus? Who knows what this is?
Yeah, it's Parks Radio Telescope in Australia.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Who knew that? What's your first name, sir? Who said Parks?
Doug.
Doug, you are absolutely right. This is the Parks 64-meter radio telescope down under. This gave us those black and white images from Apollo 11. From Apollo 11, it gets better. Look at that. Look right below the focus cabin. Right below the focus cabin, still glinting, streaking across. That's the Space Shuttle Orbiter Atlantis on her final mission. How cool is that? Orange County, it gets better. Look to the right. Barbara, look to the right. That streak is the ISS. They just separated 3 minutes ago. So I apologize. I've seen this picture hundreds of times. I'm getting goosebumps. Without us having a shuttle program any longer, and the ISS and Parks, and that, some of you might not be old enough to remember Apollo 11, but this, to me, I need to thank John Sarkisian of the Parks Observatory Organization to let me share this with you this evening. I'm sorry, I just get really, really excited about that photo. For those of you who are amateur radio operators, if your significant other thinks that your shack or your ham area is getting a little messy, just let him or her know, hey, it's worse up on the ISS. This is the ISS networking room, or networking area on the Columbus module, the US Columbus module. Here is the Columbus module. In the circle is one of our Kenwood 2-meter mobiles, a Kenwood TM 710GA, modified for that environment, that we work FM voice with a handheld radio with the astronauts every once in a while. Here's a familiar sight for some of you. This is our own ham radio outlet on 933 North Euclid Avenue, half a mile south of the 91. I worked for a ham radio outlet for a few years with Janet Margelli, who recently retired. As ham radio operators, it is best if we work these, just think of them as crossband repeaters in the sky. They want to receive on one band and transmit on the other. It's best if we work them in true full duplex mode. That's defined as being able to hear the downlink from the satellite as you key your mic. But hams, you know, we only had one recent handheld radio that did that well in VHF up, UHF down, and vice versa. That was the Kenwood THD 72. The 74 doesn't do it, the 75 doesn't do it. That did that well in both modes. So if you want to work true full duplex, and the benefit to do that is that you can hear your signal, making sure you're getting into the satellite. You can also make sure you're not actually stepping on someone else. We are in Southern California, and there's a lot of activity on these FM satellites, especially on the weekend. So working true full duplex, I'm here in the foreground, wearing an earpiece and a little speaker mic, and in the background is a local gentleman who is got a little Yaesu non-duplex radio open up to receive, so folks can hear what's going on. This is the 174th, I think, 174th time I've given this presentation. We've been written up in magazines. We were on Ham Nation several times, and Tom's W5KUB podcast. Just an exciting aspect of this hobby we call amateur radio. As we work on, we're going to talk about handheld antennas to do this, and some of them are a little heavy, 3.5, 4 pounds, and these are 12-minute passes, so it puts some stress on your wrist, shoulder, and elbow. We will talk about ergonomics later. A couple of you I know from Ham Radio Outlet, and this is the little Go Box. Right now it's got 2 of the Biennial lithium polymers batteries inside of it. It now has some USB ports on it also. But this is great, a little great Go Box, insulated, obviously, great handle, You can strap it in as a seatbelt so it won't fly around in case of something horrible happening in the car. But I need to thank my wife for this. She bought me a Dremel tool for my birthday one year, and I had to start cutting up something. So you can put any mobile on top of there. And anyway, little cool go box, little cool box. Okay, any engineers in the room or on the show? 1, 2, there's 5 of you. Okay, I will take my egg beater antenna with me to shows. You can't miss the red arrow, sorry. And I'll put it up on a rotator. Thank you, Reza. And I'll call it my souffle antenna. M Squared is a wonderful company. Their egg beaters cost $302. Your $15 tape measure beam you can build with a free Harbor Freight tape measure will outperform that antenna for working these satellites. I kid you not. M Squared 2-meter receive for general receive, okay. For receiving slow scan TV from the ISS, okay. But you want more directionality, more gain that a silly little $15 antenna will give you. This is my QSL card. Amateur radio operators send these cards out when we have contacts with each other to show off what we're doing. This is at the Los Angeles County Fair a few years ago. We just communicated with 3 countries with 2 watts. I didn't say counties, Reza. I didn't say counties. We worked Mexico, the U.S., and Vancouver, British Columbia on a pass that was about 45 degrees off the horizon, so about halfway up the sky. The gentleman on the right is not a ham. He is so intoxicated, he's looking for the little people talking to me in my handheld. But this is what keeps me excited with this hobby, knowing with minimal power, you can do this. You can do this. And after our 4 hours is up, you'll know how to do it. I volunteer for a few amateur radio organizations, the American Radio Relay League. A couple of you are members. The ARRL is our largest lobbying body for amateur radio concerns in North America. I'm the type of a person who would rather know ahead of time when legislation or something might happen to affect our hobby, as opposed to reading about it 3 months later. So the ARRL, if you're an amateur radio operator, is well worth your support. Their membership is $44 or $48 a year. You get a magazine every month. Hey, you'll get a new email address to get forwarded. It'll be your amateur radio call sign at arrl.net. You get discounts on their educational materials, and they have a wonderful equipment insurance plan. And a little secret, you don't need to be an ARRL member to participate in this insurance plan. Here in California, my mobile radio, my Mac computers and monitors, everything I'm using tonight for the show, isn't always covered by your homeowners and or auto insurance. Auto insurance has to have a rider for that mobile rig. The ARRL insurance plan is, I think it's either $1.50 or $1.60 per $100 evaluation. It's a $50 deductible per loss. But the kicker that my State Farm insurance agent, who I've been with for more than 50 years, can't match is current day replacement cost. If you've got equipment up on the hill, amateur radio equipment up on the hill, they've got a commercial plan for you. And if you're involved in amateur radio with a group, they've got a umbrella policy for the club. It would cover the members that are attending on their routes to and from the meeting place this evening. Anyway, arrlinsurance.com, arrlinsurance.com. I also volunteer for AMSAT, North America and the rest of the planet. AMSAT, Amateur Radio Satellites on the ISS. We were founded in 1969 as a nonprofit. Our mission is to build satellites for you and also to disseminate information about them to the planet and to do shows like this for wonderful people in Orange County. We are international in scope, more than 20 chapters across the globe. We're also a 501c3. Okay, I won't beg. The third organization I work for is ARIS, Amateur Radio Aboard the International Space Station. ARIS is not only responsible for getting amateur radio gear aboard the ISS, but I'm sure almost all of you have seen those wonderful conversations or interviews when students on the ground, on Earth, are interviewing an astronaut who is circling the globe aboard the International Space Station. We have performed more than 1,600 of those contacts in Eris the past few years. And when you think about it, there'll be 20 students asking questions. There'll be an audience of from 50 to 300 in the audience or even more. Think of the thousands of lives these wonderful events have wonderful lives that have been affected by these events. So I know you already know these: ARRL.org, AMSAT.org, and ARIS.org. Any Raspberry Pi folks? Any people working with Pis? Oh, Raisa, I knew you would. We have 2 Raspberry Pi 4s on board the ISS right now. Raisa, there's a program from Great Britain. A middle school student has a program on this Pi that measures defoliation in Africa. Middle school student, same age as a middle school student here in America. Can you imagine this young lady's first job interview? Yes, I've written some computer code. It's aboard the International Space Station right now. Wow. Those are the older Pi 3Bs. I have that exact model with that Sense hat. I don't have that $5,000 case that was mandated by the space agencies involved to make it glovable and more easy for them to access. The new Pi 4s has the wonderful Pi telescope camera lens, and the other one has an enhanced Sense hat. But if you go to astro-pi.org, you will see a most magnificent marketing, teaching, learning, STEAM plans, just a wonderful project. And in a couple of years, there's going to be a Pi on board the ISS that you and I'll be able to access. That's called a teaser, I think, isn't it, dear? Yeah. Okay. I know all of you. Show of hands, please. Who has gone outside right after sunset or before dawn and seen the ISS streak across the sky with your naked eye? Yes, thank you. I was in front of my local Best Buy store. Yes. I was in front of my local Best Buy store a couple of years ago, and I couldn't speak this young man's language. But as soon as I said International Space Station, there's 1, 2, 3. There's like 7 people trying to capture it as it went over. Commander Reed Weissman aboard the International Space Station gave us some FM simplex walkie-talkie to walkie-talkie time a couple years ago. And in amateur radio, some people think this is the ultimate in amateur radio contacts. NA1SS, Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra.
Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra. This is NA1SS 2 Alpha GX.
Commander Weissman, thank you very much for what you're doing for amateur radio this weekend, K6LCS. Raisa, that's me 20 pounds ago. I'm using a $15 antenna. I've turned my 4-watt radio down to 2 watts. I am talking to a person 465 miles downrange when we started. Just think of these as the ultimate line-of-sight experiment. If you have no buildings, no trees, no mountains between you and your target, you and the satellite, you're going to be working it. And I know someone just asked, why did you turn it down to 2 watts? Well, in amateur radio, our mandate is, use the least amount of power necessary to make it happen. And there's 6 or 7 dB gain in that silly little $15 tape measure beam. I knew it would happen. I knew it was possible. And when Reed Weissman came back to me, blood pressure goes up. Break out the pina coladas, had a great time. I was also honored to orchestrate one of those ARISS contacts. This is at historic Flabob Airport in Jurupa Valley, California. It's historic because it is Chapter 1 of the Experimental Aircraft Association. There's our students, bottom right, who are going to ask Don Pettit, Flight Engineer Don Pettit, his questions. We are the newest city in California. We just incorporated, so we had the new city council there. We had our school board there. Gordon West, amateur radio guru. KNBC was there. National Public Radio, NPR was there, and there I am sweating it out at the mixing board. Raisa, on Monday, our audio was fine. On Tuesday and Wednesday, checks were fine. On Thursday for the event, we had an audio problem with Houston. They almost made us abort. These projects are a year-long setup for a 15-minute conversation. If NASA knew that I was in the background there on the right, turning up the pot for the students and turning down and then turning back up for the astronaut, they would have said, "You're Mickey Mousing it. We'll do it next year. We'll do it next year." Disappointing 300 people in the crowd, showing failure. No, was not going to happen. We got ourselves on page 1, color photo, above the fold, in California's 6th largest daily newspaper, where our students belonged. We were just praying that Paris Hilton didn't get drunk that night and bump us off the front page. But that's where our students belong. That's where our students belong. Okay, that's our intro. What did Raisa want me to do tonight? Oh, let's talk about working amateur radio satellites. Let's get more formal here. Yeah, someone wearing a shirt like this is going to get formal. Okay. Why am I doing this? Who am I? I've only been involved in amateur radio since 1994. I did work for Motorola commercial radio for a few years. A wonderful experience. Also worked at amateur radio at Ham Radio Outlet for a couple of years. And I met a couple of you at HRO Anaheim. Again, it's 933 North Euclid Avenue, Anaheim, California. Okay. I have my own website because 17, 18 years ago, like I told you, I was searching for information about easy to work satellites and found outdated stuff. My website was last updated 45 minutes ago. Stick with me or ARIS or AMSAT, AMSAT, AMSAT UK, AMSAT-UK has a wonderful website. But again, make sure what you're looking for data, frequencies, and available satellites is dated, and that we webmasters respect you enough to do that. We're going to demolish 2 preconceptions this evening. You already know the answer to these. Clint, you need 100 watts, you need a rotator, you need multiple Yagis on the roof to work these low Earth orbiting satellites. Barbara, is that correct? No, it's not. Dr. Fauci, do you need all that equipment, Dr. Fauci?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But Clint, isn't it an expensive proposition to get in this aspect of amateur radio? We all love Jack. Jack, hey, is it expensive?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Most amateur radio operators, thank you, Reza. Most amateur radio operators already have the necessary equipment to do this. There's the iconic ICOM W32A, a true full duplex radio, but you don't need one of those. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that radio and those hams that are here this evening, there was a collapsible metal antenna called the Anley AL800 that I acquired for Prime Radio a long time ago. This was an antenna that was about 12 inches tall, but when you extended the collapsible metal antenna, it was about, 15 feet tall or something. But with this antenna and this radio, a friend of mine in Texas, let's see, Alan, 9,230 contacts he made with a handheld radio and that better antenna on his handheld radio. Now, right now, for 2-meter receive, that's fine, but for you want more directionality and more gain, that something as simple as the tape measure beam or a commercial $150 antenna will provide for you. But receiving slow scan TV, we're going to talk about, you can receive images from the International Space Station with just a handheld. We'll talk about in a second. Knowledge is power. Sir Francis Bacon. I think John said he used to lunch with this guy. I think, John, didn't you? Used to lunch with, okay, courtesy laugh from John, I appreciate it. All right, let's see, we're on the same coast, but I've lost track of time. Can somebody tell me what time it is right now, please? Anybody? Unmute yourselves or something.
8:29.
No, that's the wrong answer, I'm sorry. Anybody? Is the screen still on? Raisa, what time is it?
Are you referring to the UT time?
Is the screen still on, or did my video leave?
We
I think he means trivia time.
It is trivia time. Thank you, Orange County. Oscar is a, yeah. Again, you can blame Raisa for all this. Oscar is a acronym. Anybody know what Oscar stands for? Can someone from Zoom unmute themselves, or we'll give them 10 seconds. OSCAR is an acronym for amateur radio satellites. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe we better ask, why am I doing this? There's a wonderful cross-pollination is the wrong word, but what John did earlier is just totally fascinating to me as an amateur radio operator. And there's been a lot of overlap in these two. I don't want to demean it by saying hobbies, but these two avocations. So anyway, OSCAR is an acronym. OSCAR, it's not that. OSCAR stands for orbital. You get that vision out of your mind. Orbital Satellite Carrying Amateur Radio. And they're all numbered 1 through 120. And North America, America's first amateur radio satellite, there it is. There it is. That is OSCAR 1. OSCAR 1. If that looks like, John, a bunch of sheet metal and rivets put together in Central California, that's because it is. There's Lance Gunnar, Gunnar, in Central California, who built that in the 60s. Anybody going to admit, maybe Alan, anybody going to admit that they heard this project? That's fine. It was in the 60s. It just went around the Earth a couple times and emitted HI in Morse code, HI. But there it is. Look at that surface mount componentry. Wow. No magnifying glass needed for that. No fine soldering iron needed for that. And $63. $63, 1961. Remember that dollar amount as we talk about more recent satellites. I apologize for this slide. Way too many words. I just want you to know that our first North American satellite was in 61. OSCAR 1. OSCAR 2 failed. OSCAR 3 was our first amateur radio satellite with a transponder aboard. There have been more than 125 Oscars. Russia's always been involved. And as I said before, there's always been amateur radio aboard the ISS, the International Space Station. They actually used our equipment when they did some routine maintenance on their primary system. And again, almost all astronauts, no matter country of origin, are amateur radio operators. The low Earth orbiting satellites are about 250 to 350 miles above the Earth. The ones we are going to work are sun synchronous. They'll be going north to south or south to north so that their solar panels are being hit by the sun at least twice a day to energize battery, to charge batteries. You'll get to a point in your satellite career where you won't take your PDA. Anybody use a PDA anymore? You won't take your iPad or your printout or your laptop outside with you. You'll just know whether it's going to be towards your east or towards your west and where it's going to be. This is not with your antennas. This is not a minute, stressful movement of as you follow it across the sky for these 10 or 12-minute passes. I think the technical word is slop. There's a lot of slop involved with pointing these antennas and capturing these satellites. A couple terms you're going to run into: orbit, simply the path of the satellite around the Earth. There is a Doppler accommodation we must make. These are 2 meter 440, 2 meter 23 centimeter crossband repeaters. On the 440 side of life, you need to accommodate for Doppler. And I asked Reza to have you all bring your slide rules. Get your slide rules out. We're going to have an equation here for you a second. Let's say that the satellite is transmitting in the middle there on 435.300, 435.300 megahertz. You're going to acquire it. Speaking of mnemonic devices, John, my mnemonic device for this is to acquire above. Acquire above. So when you know it's breaking the horizon, tune up to 305 or 310. At what moment do you change frequencies? No computer is going to tell you. This is one of the cool reasons for using true full duplex, is that you're going to hear it and know when it's a better capture and when your signal is getting in it better. So acquire it at 310, start working it at 305, and TCA, time of closest approach, when it's right over you. And then as you lose it, slightly below the center frequency. The handheld radios we have now are, 500, 1,000 memories. I don't VFO this for you hams. I just program these into my amateur radio. So here is the frequency to derive Doppler. I don't see anybody in the auditorium with a slide rule. Alan, you got a slide rule in your office, don't you? No?
John does.
Oh, John. I knew John would. All right, here we go. Never mind. Only engineers care about this stuff. I did it for you. Here's a decent pass. Yeah, define decent. These are a bunch of scientists. Here's a decent pass of a low Earth orbiting satellite. Look on 2 meters there. It's only plus or minus 3 kilohertz of deviation for that 12 or 15-minute pass. No big deal. No big deal. But look on 440. Look on 70 centimeters. I misspoke a minute ago. I called that 23 centimeters. I apologize. 70 centimeters are the 440 amateur band. Look at that. Plus or minus 10 kilohertz of deviation on that signal from horizon to horizon. That's why you need to accommodate for Doppler, whether transmitting or receiving on the 440 side. And I'll show you some frequency charts in a second. That'll make that clear. Let's see.
Clint,
yes,
there's some
yes.
people asking if the charts, you will make them available to us after the talk.
Yes, for a payment to my PayPal account of $300. No, Ray, no, it's all on my website, and I'll show you them here, but don't screen capture. It's all on the very front page of my website under frequency list.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. LEO is a acronym for low Earth orbiting. Well, if LEO is low Earth orbiting, then HEO must be an acronym for, yes, high Earth orbit. Geosynchronous. Geosynchronous birds, satellites. If you had asked AMSAT 20 years ago, will we ever have a geosynchronous satellite over Central North and over the equator for Central North and South America, we would have said no. It's way too expensive. It needs to be maneuverable so we don't bump into your Super Bowl coverage on the ESPN satellite. And again, very, very expensive. But you know what? We've got a SpaceX board member who's an amateur radio operator. Could that be a piggyback launch opportunity for us? Not sure. This is not a proclamation. This is not a declaration. This is not an announcement. But if you ask anybody in AMSAT now, it might be possible. There's a geosynchronous satellite. I mean, imagine having that for your regional emergency. It won't be 2 meter 440. It'll be probably 5 and 10 gigahertz. But still, for less than $1,000, American Red Cross or any of your ham radio or your emergency response folks will be able to access it. There's one over Africa. Its primary mission was not amateur, but they had amateur gear on board after the commercial venture expired. But now it's just money. We've got the technology, launch opportunity, and money to build it. Yes, you can put ARIS and AMSAT in your wills. When you think about it, if you do that, the only people who will be upset will be the grandchildren. Huh. Well, anyway, okay, enough of that. We already talked about that. They're 250 to 300 miles above us. Uplink is your transmitted signal to it. Downlink is coming from it. Footprint is the oval or circular area on Earth where you should be line of sight to the satellite. This is all line of sight experiments. Again, no mountains, no electrical interference, no trees, no elevation changes between you and the satellite. You're going to hear and possibly transmit through and work it. Here is a that's kind of stupid, but that's a ground track for us here. And now, those of you who are ham radio operators, you're wondering, why do this? Why mess around with a 5 or 10 or 12-minute pass? Those of you who are not ham radio operators, this should not be in anyone's 911 emergency communications plan. These are not manned by people all the time listening, and this satellite pass is not going to coincide with our earthquake or our flood or our mudslide. As John showed us this evening with the equipment he has, there are several aspects of your hobby in astronomy. There are several aspects in amateur radio. We have packet radio. We have transpond Morse code. We have voice. We have amateur radio satellites. There are several people in your organization that wear several hats for different aspects of your hobby. So for amateur radio, for me, going out to a regional park, unfurling my tape measure beam, sitting at a park bench and start talking with a terrestrial station or a satellite. You draw people to you. You draw families to you. You find out what's happening with the children, with the students in school for STEM and STEAM and mathematics courses. You always, of course, will have an Orange County Astronomers membership form in your back pocket. But it's just another aspect of amateur radio that even the entry-level classification of license can work. These are 2 meter 440 voice communications. Even the entry-level exam is called technician license. It's an easy license to pass. It gives you access to these. Let's flip forward from 1961 to 2004 when we launched AMSAT Oscar 5.1. AMSAT Oscar 5.1 cost a little bit more than $61 to create and get it launched, but this was the most magnificent teaching and learning and marketing of amateur radio satellites project ever. And we've been trying to duplicate its, is wonderfulness a word?
Yes.
We're trying to duplicate its one. We would go to classrooms at lunchtime and be able to hear this. We would put it into, oh, there's the CubeSat. It's a little 9-inch CubeSat for chassis. There's the payload. We're right there front center. There are 3 of the same chassis on board, but we're the only amateur radio equipment on board on this particular launch from Russia. We would turn it into a 1.2 gig receive mode every once a month for those who had the Alinco or the little ICOM 1.2 gig machine. Several modes, several ways to hit it and to work it. Just a phenomenal marketing and learning tool. Learning more so than the marketing. Marketing in amateur radio, we don't make any. We don't make any money doing what we're doing. But it's just the learning and teaching are exciting. Again, these are sun synchronous. You know, when your wife goes on her first trip to Tibet for 6 weeks, you're alone at the house, and you go to a European's satellite operator's website, download their program that will decode telemetry from some of these telemetry satellites. This is just really cool stuff. But again, your significant other needs to be far, far away. This is solar panel condition, battery condition, heat and temperature. I apologize if this is too geeky, but this is just really cool stuff. Overnighters, a lot of coffee, cool stuff. All right, for those of you in the hobby, are any of you that have portable equipment radios or that use rechargeable batteries? How many of you have had a rechargeable battery or HT battery, handheld radio battery, last for 21 years? Show of hands, please. 21 years? NiCad? Nickel metal hydride? The Saudis have a satellite up there for us. It's called SO50, Saudi Oscar 50. It was launched in 2002. It is still working. We don't know why. Back in 2002, it's not lithium, it's a NiCad chemistry. It's a harsh environment in space. This satellite is still working for you 24/7. Okay, I apologize. It is a little off frequency. And you'll need a full 4 watts and a good your tape measure beam to get into it and work it. But 22 years? A wonderful satellite, Only 250 milliwatts coming down, but you're going to work it, even though it's 300, 400, 500 miles away. AMSAT Oscar 27 from AMSAT North America, it died about 10 or 12 years ago, but then for some reason, 7 or 8 years ago, it came back alive. We aren't sure why. Cold solder joints don't repair themselves in space. We're not sure why. It's not working right now, but program AO27 just in case it comes back alive. More recently, we have launched AO91 and 92. I respect your group enough to not use the F word this evening. Failure. These did not achieve what we wanted them to. 92 is gone. 91, please only try to access it. Please only transmit through it when you're being sunburned, when it's in sunlight. That's how bad the battery situation is. A lot of learning has occurred by our engineers. Our next effort on this is going to be better. These just did not work out like we wanted them to. So 90, if you see frequencies for 92, please avoid it. 91, only when it's illuminated by the sun. So we're almost through with part 1 here. The minimum requirements for working these is a 2-meter 440 handheld. The Yaesu handhelds will allow you to program split frequencies, where it will program 2 meters on transmit and 440 on receive in one memory location, not duplex, because when you key the mic, you'll never hear anything, but it's just kind of convenient. And although true full duplex is preferred, if it's off peak hours, 9 o'clock tonight, 10 o'clock tonight, during the week, not during a Boy Scout event or not during a field day amateur radio annual event, if it's off peak hours, you can just treat it like your local repeater. You don't intentionally step on someone when you key your mic. You wait for a break in the action and then work it. So it can be done. Or use two radios. Just make sure you're 20 feet or so apart, 20 feet or so apart, so that the audio that's coming out is not feeding into your transmission. A couple of you I know already have Yaesu handhelds. The FT60 is a wonderful analog, not digital, but analog handheld sold by our friends at Ham Radio Outlet. And when you program that type of a a split frequency like that, both the plus and minus signs will show up in your display. On the FT60, it's on page 28 of your manual. On the FT70, it's on page 23-ish of the advanced manual. But again, not duplex, but doable. You need to improve your stock antenna. And if you're going to start using different antennas and coax on your handheld radio, think of converting that delicate SMA connector to a BNC connector. Quality SMA connectors on handhelds are only rated at 300 or 400 disconnects. And if you're using one of the less expensive Chinese imports, that's not a quality SMA connector. So think of improving your antenna. The Smiley antenna is half the price of the popular Diamond SRH320. It's half the price, but a better performer. Hams and astronomers like bargains, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Let me tell you about the Diamond. Although it's a metal rod connected to your antenna, to your HT or your handheld, it's got a coil in the base where you can make mistakes like this and drop it and make some accidents with it. Have some accidents with it. An all metal to metal connector, I don't like. It puts all that stress of a heavier antenna. If you put a heavier antenna or some heavy coax on these two radios, the arrow is showing you that any stress on that left one is yanking against the circuit board of your radio. It's disconnecting at some point in time during your net, during your event. It's going to happen. It's going to fail at some point in time. Shock absorption on the right. Shock absorption on the right. What does shock absorption do? It absorbs shocks. It allows you to make a couple of mistakes. I'm sorry for harping on this, but I had a lot of hams bring their radios back after accidental drops. For those of you who are engineers, you and I have seen these connectors even worse on torque and stress. The PL and the end connector down to an SMA. And let's see, we're on the West Coast, so please, if you're an amateur radio operator and you have a pacemaker, implant, or you're weak of heart, I need you to avoid the next slide, please.
The following is not suited for minors.
Yeah.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, again, if you're weak of heart, please turn away. Ready? I think there's a cable TV F connector in there. Someone went to Radio Shack, got one of everything to make, and maybe if they're connected, a third of a dB loss each. Please, don't do this to the hobby. Don't do this to your radio. Don't let an Orange County Register reporter come to your event and say, "Oh, this is why they call it amateur radio." Don't do this. Thank you, Reza. Don't do this. There are jumpers at Ham Radio Outlet. Did I mention they're at 933 North Euclid Avenue in Anaheim, just a half a mile south of the 91 freeway? I think I did. There are jumper cables that'll help you out with this. And there's the Diamond cushioned shock absorbing antenna connector. There's a lot of difference between how antennas mate to the top of those handheld radios. So ask HRO or a fellow ham who's got your same radio, what's the best one? What's the best one? When your wife goes on her second trip to Tibet, Reza, for 6 weeks, and you're home by yourself, you whip out your Motorola signal generating equipment and you start testing handheld radio antennas. This is a total waste of time. This is a total waste of time. As we all learn in adolescence, longer is better. And for 2-meter 440 work on a little handheld antenna, about 17 inches is what you want. The stock antennas are negative gain, maybe a fourth, negative 6, 9, 12 dB. But here in Southern California, they're fairly effective, because in Southern California, we're all in valleys with mountaintop repeater or hilltop repeaters all around us. So the stock antenna in Southern California will work for us really well for regular communications. But if the person's calling from Kansas or Nebraska and has nothing within 60 or 70 miles, it's completely useless. We are just really, really fortunate here that a stock antenna can get us on the air on amateur radio repeaters. Double your pleasure. Oh, I remember this. Yes, I am that old. I remember this ad campaign. For those of you with rechargeable batteries, for those of you with handheld amateur radios, everyone would like their battery to last longer. In the amateur radio world, the way you can do this is to improve your antenna, like I showed you, and turn your transmit power down to 2 watts, to half power. If you turn your transmit power down to half power, that's going to double your battery life. Raisa, I'm not charging you any more for this little feature here. You want to improve your battery life even more if you're working with radios? Use an earpiece or a little headset. What's the first thing you'll do with your volume control if you're using an earpiece? You're going to turn the volume down. What eats up batteries, what consumes batteries in the amateur radio world is keying your mic and transmitting and loud audio. So there, I'd not charge you any more for this hint tonight, Reza. Double your battery life by just simply improving your antenna and using an audio accessory. This is a bumper sticker I had on my car until I realized I needed to respect my marriage more. With your amateur radio, when you go outside in the front yard, you key your mic to talk and you're going to hit your friend down the street or your local hilltop repeater and have a good time. But most of the amateur radio satellites are not land-based. 3, 2, 1. Most of the amateur satellites are not, thank you, Reza, are not land-based. So you need to get that perpendicular relationship, that 90-degree relationship, to match the orbit of the satellite. Again, this is not a finite, stressful maneuver on your part, but you'll be opening up your squelch all the way. It'll be noisy. But when you start hearing that little, at 5 or 10 degrees elevation off the horizon, you'll start hearing a dip in the background noise. And then for those of you who are ham radio operators, when these are at their closest approach above you, it is as quiet a background as your local repeaters. It is phenomenal. Again, line of sight. It's look at this. I'm 100 years old. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps. At the Santa Barbara Amateur Radio Extravaganza a few years ago, this young man on the left just got his amateur radio license the Friday before. Reza, his first contact on ham radio was working with me on the satellites. How cool is that? It gets better. His dad and his grandfather were there. I had 3 generations, each working satellites for the first time. So when I pass away, this is, my wife's picture will be in my left pocket, but this is I just cherish this. When you get older, you get weepy about this stuff. We talked about ergonomics. We talked about the weight of these antennas. The 2 really popular antennas are the Arrow antenna, which is Yagi Elements. One set of them are for 2 meter, one set of them are for 440, about 3.5 pounds. No big deal, but yeah, holding it, it only comes with none of the stuff on the left. It only comes with that little strut coming out of there with a foam handle on it. So what I've done with mine, I've made the whole thing heavier, but it's now counterbalanced. The handheld goes into this tray. That's just 3/4 inch aluminum angle. And you all recognize that handle. Stanley. It's a Stanley hacksaw handle that I have radiator. Stop laughing. Stop laughing. It makes the whole thing heavier, but it's counterbalanced. It eliminates all that stress off. Well, here in my wrist, my right wrist, you can't miss the arrow. I'm sorry, but there's the right wrist. And just down the street at Orange County Orthopedics, it took them 5 weeks to diagnose this, but they came up with the diagnosis of arrow wrist syndrome. Arrow wrist syndrome. You can blame, again, Reza for all this. Anyway, here is, did I mention Ham Radio Outlet? Here we are in front of Ham Radio Outlet in a demo day. That bottle of Tang is just my homage to the space race from the 60s. It's not full of water. The little cue card at the end is letting folks know what frequency we're working to receive some images from the ISS that afternoon. I don't know what the guy on the roof is doing. It might be my parole officer taking pictures to make sure they know where I was. And then Joe Walsh has been a fan of and a supporter of amateur radio forever and ever. to hold everything together so your handheld doesn't fall out. Use one of those charity bracelets and hold everything together. Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. My attorney just advised me that is a joke about the parole officer. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So these are not geosynchronous, so they aren't stationary in one place all the time. You need to know where they are. And your AMSAT engineers are busy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, deriving satellite pass data for you. Alan, this is a cool photo. Doesn't this remind you of the Cold War? We have two generations who have no idea what the Cold War was. Anyway, there it is. And here, get your slide rules out. Get that slide rule out, John. It's easy to derive these past. Okay, here we go. All you do is plug in the epoch time, element set, inclination, RA of node, the eccentricity, arc of the perigee, mean anomaly, mean motion, decay rate, epoch revolution. Don't forget to checksum. Don't forget the checksum. And then you map this all out on equatorial graph paper for every pass of every satellite you want to work. All right, Orange County, you got it? Can we move on? Got it. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. This is all done for you on a bunch of programs that I enjoy and support. We're all friends here. We're all friends here. Anybody still have a Trio 650 or an old Palm PDA? If you're not using it because of the battery, batteriesamerica.com, batteriesamerica.com. This is not a sponsorship. I've just been a consumer of theirs for 30 years. Batteriesamerica.com will have those older batteries. Well, we'll have new batteries for those older units. They also have, thank you very much. They also have AA cases for some of those older amateur HTs. Batteriesamerica.com on the East Coast. Wonderful people, wonderful people. If you have a Trio Pocket Sat for Palm, if you are an Android smartphone person, we have, wait a minute. What is wrong? What is wrong with that? This is a pass. Didn't the guy in the Van Gogh shirt say that these satellites are sun synchronous? So will there ever be a east to west pass? No, there won't. No, there won't. This is while we're beta testing this product. It is now known as AMSAT Droid Free. AMSAT Droid Free in your Google Play Store. Doesn't cost much. It's free and gives you accurate information on your passes. Gives you the wonderful map on the right, and also what you can expect to do when you go outside. AMSAT Droid Free for your Android phones. No, there's only one. I refuse to take this slide out of my presentation. Raisa, I'm that old and it's not going away. It's not going away. G-Predict. Oh God, G-Predict for you Raspberry Pi folks, you Linux folks. Look at this gorgeous map. It obviously is tracking several satellites at once. It'll also control rotators later for you in your satellite career. You can port this to Mac. You can port it to Windows via some third party. This is a freebie for Linux, and it's in your Pi programs. G-Predict, one word, free. I usually have it on a 32-inch monitor to my right, but it puts out too much glare but this is a gorgeous program. I take it with me to shows. There it is running on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, which is way overkill for it. Got a Zero, got an older Pi, it'll work on it. Just a gorgeous program. G-Predict for Linux. My go-to though, written by a ham in Canada, is GoSat Watch for Apple, for my iPad and Apple iPhones. It's not cheap, it's $10. Written by a ham. There's scores of programs that track satellites. What I'm recommending to you are programs I know, programs that are supported, programs that respect you. About 6 years ago, NASA changed the manner by which we acquired ISS pass data. Within 2 weeks, this gentleman had this program rewritten and uploaded to the App Store. That to me is a cool ham that deserves our support for your iPhone or your iPad. GoSat Watch on the Apple App Store. For Windows folks, there's Sat PC 32. Sat PC 32 is a commercial program. If you're a member of AMSAT, you get a little discount on it. It also tracks several satellites at once for you and will control some rotators for that, the expensive Yaesu rotator for you too later on. Nova for Windows hasn't been supported, hasn't been updated in probably 15 years. Windows 10, maybe. Windows 11, no. But I know a couple of you won't admit it here in public, but you're running XP or running an older version of Windows. Try Nova. Try Nova. It was commercial. The unlock code is on my website to try it and see if it works on your older Windows program. So this is against what I just said. It's not supported, but it's stable for older Windows OSs. And okay, I apologize. Look at that low-res Jiffy thing for Windows. Clint must be working with Mac. Mac Doppler Pro, another gorgeous program, multiple satellites, blah, 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 blah. Commercial, you get a discount on it if you are a member of AMSAT. All right, it's 7:30 somewhere on the planet. Who has this evening's final, I know Alan does, who has this evening's final Jeopardy response? It's part of my license agreement to let that 30-second clip run uninterrupted. So, who has our Jeopardy response this evening? A Zoomer, unmute yourself. Best known for his theories about planetary orbits in 1604, I think Alan knows him. He became the first to explain how eyeglasses correct vision. Anyone have the answer for us this evening? The gentleman's name is Johannes Kepler, Kepler. Keplerian elements, that white box in the center, just think of that as a mathematical statement of the orbit of a satellite. And you are all invited this evening at 12 midnight. We're going to have a little private session where we can decode this white box. No extra charge. Didn't tell Reza we're doing it, but we'll be there. I'll see you at midnight. I have to formally thank Sony Entertainment Network for letting me play that 30-second clip, because I'm in California and they have really aggressive attorneys. Here's another one. No sound. Around since 1998, it is now roughly the size of a football field, and it travels at 5 miles per second. No, it's not me on the 91 freeway. No, it is the International Space Station. 5 miles a second. Free information for you online. And as you work these for the first few times, use 2 sources for info to make sure that the pass is exactly the same. The errors I have made is put the wrong time of day, or the wrong grid square or wrong area on Earth. If I put in Germany and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not getting my passes. Heavensabove.com, heavens-above.com, n2yo.com, n2yo.com, and good old amsat.org. The first 2 will give you beautiful graphic representations minute by minute of what you expect to see, and AMSAT gives you that. Now, I know Reza likes this. I know Alan likes this. This is just data. What we're looking for on this page, look for the maximum elevation. There's a column for maximum elevation. And this is your area. Actually, for Amateur Radio World, you and I are in the same grid square, Orange County, and I'm right over the hill in Harupa Valley, the corner of the 60 and the 15. But I see, there's a high pass right there. 67 degrees, 67 degrees above the horizon. 90 degrees is straight up. This is 2/3 the way off the horizon. Those hills are not going to bug you. Let's decode this even further. The ISS is not north to south, south to north. It's in a different orbit, which we'll talk about. But here, the AOS, the acquisition of signal, is at 311 on the compass. LOS, loss of signal, is at 140. This is a northwest to east pass going slightly to your north. Even if you just turn to the frequency that receives ISS chatter, ISS, you'll hear hams on it. You're going to hear this with your stock antenna, with your scanner. Got an old Bearcat scanner? Get some batteries for it. batteriesamerica.com, and just listen to this. Even just hearing this qualifies you for a gorgeous ISS QSL card. You don't have to be a ham. You don't have to be a ham. Where is mine? God, I don't even know where it is. I'll show it to you in a second. But this is a wonderful pass. Please remember the AMSAT data. The AMSAT data is in Greenwich Mean Time. It is in Greenwich Mean Time. I used to take my phone to bed with me. I would get calls 3 or 4 in the morning. Clint, the satellite's not there. Well, are you using AMSAT's data? Well, yeah, you told me to. Did you back out for Greenwich Mean Time? Click. So this pass, which is at 2146, that's 9:46 at night on April 15. Right now we're daylight savings time. We are 7 hours before Greenwich Mean Time. So take that 7 hours out. This is the afternoon for you. 2:46 p.m. April 15. The frequencies I'll show you in a second. You'll be able to hear it. The 2 meter coming down is it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. So you just deciphered that whole page of gobbling of numbers only. And I know engineers love numbers only, but look again for maximum elevation. Those 3-degree passes, 5-degree passes with handheld, don't frustrate yourself. Wait for the 30, then that 67. There's a 54 in there. Some of them are late at night. Late at night on the West Coast, though, is cool because there's only going to be 3 or 4 of you online or on the satellite. I had a friend of mine from France call me last year. He had an ISS pass right over central France, right over his house. There was no one else to talk to. But anyway, look for time of day and especially that elevation chart. Just for you to know, and I can, again, when your spouse is gone, you can turn this video on. This is the ISS's pass over us. This is why it's not north to south, south to north. So just let you know, that's why it's not like our normal amateur radio satellites. Anyway, location and time again, location and time. On my website, N2YO made a little widget for me that shows you where 91, the ISS, and SO50 are right now. So you can match up your scheme with mine. And again, use 2 sources for info. There's more than 2 free sources to make sure that you're looking at the same thing. The last error I made, thank goodness it was in my favor. I forgot about daylight savings times, but the pass was an hour later. And you probably know me enough by now that I was able to fill time for an hour talking until it occurred. Location and time. Some of these programs will revert to the author's home location. That's redundant. I'm sorry. You know it isn't. So make sure you put your location. If you need a grid square, there's qrz.com, or your iPhone apps or smartphone apps will tell you, and correct time of day. So we're almost through a part 1. You are going to listen. You're going to monitor your downlink on your ham radio. You're going to open up your squelch all the way. So it'll be noisy. It'll be scratchy. It'll be loud. But after it gets about 5 or 6 degrees over the horizon, you're going to hear a slight dip in the background noise. And another minute or 2 later, you're going to start hearing voices. Now, that fourth, start hearing voices of amateur radio operators. This is a weird one. If you don't hear it, don't key your mic, don't transmit. I know that sounds weird, but we know 27 isn't working well. We know that 91 isn't 100%. So there might be control operators trying to send it info, send it commands, do some housekeeping chores to try and improve our enjoyment. There are fellow hams on the West Coast in AMSAT who will know. You'll hear us. You'll hear us. So if you're new to it, just wait. You're gonna be able to talk to us. Be courteous and quick, especially on the weekends, especially during a field day event or a Boy Scout event. You might just be exchanging your grid square and saying you sound great, because there are some hams going after certificates and awards for hitting grid squares across the country. But Thursday night at 9 o'clock at night, you're going to talk about the weather and talk about astronomy. How far can this go? This is by no means a record, nor can I replicate this every night. But here I was, and I apologize, each of our stations here and in Athens, Georgia, we're using 4 watts, a full 4 watts, both with aero antennas, and I broke the rules. It was only a 4-degree elevation pass for me, 2,000 miles. The ground chart on the upper right shows you I wasn't going to talk more than 500 miles. So those, if you're line of sight, you're going to hit it. This happens to be a conservative program that didn't want you to work that. Again, by no means a record, nor can it be duplicated every night. This is not meant for solid comms every pass. All right, those of you who are in the, are there any amateur radio operators in the auditorium? Okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, what is the grid square there at your meeting room? Anybody know? Yell it out. There it is. There you are. Oh, don't go back. Go back. Don't show them. Don't show them. Who knows the grid square for your meeting room? Hams? Anybody? Grid square is how the world is blocked off. I'm in Delta Mike 13 also, DM13, and the suffix is BT, Bravo. Oh, a typo! A typo! Bravo's misspelled. That's a $10 donation to Foster Animal Rescue here in Riverside, California. Foster Animal Rescue. Anytime I make a typo, we donate $10 to our favorite animal shelter. It's supposed to be Bravo Tango. There's an international set of phonetics that we use. Thank you. That's what the astronauts are expecting. That's what fellow hams are expecting. So it's not Dear Mary 13. It is Delta Mike 13. You don't need to know the suffix. You do, oh, that is your complex, isn't it? Reza, is that the complex where they're at? Okay, cool. You don't need to know the suffix for amateur radio satellite work, but your clubs and use the international phonetics. That's what's expected to be out there. We already talked about that. I take with me to shows. I've got that Kenwood THD 72, but now on the eBay market, they're going for $1,000 because it's been out of. No, don't buy one of those. Don't buy one of the old classic true full duplex radios for a few $100 because you're going to have to get a new battery immediately, probably. Batteriesamerica.com. Use two radios. Use your nicer radio that has better receive, and there are. I can't say the word Baofeng, but there are less expensive Chinese imports. Find something that's well reviewed to transmit. Here is the frequency chart for SO50. SO50. The transmit frequency is 145.85. Are we accommodating for Doppler on 2 meters? No, we're not. We don't need to. But look at the receive frequency. Channel, let's see, 206 is the middle there at 436.795. It's a little off frequency. It's like 797, but you know it's rocket science, but it ain't rocket science. A lot of satellites require a tone on the uplink. Leave, receive, open tone. Ham radio operators know what I'm talking about. A tone on the uplink. And this requires a 67.0 tone to access it. What is that arrow? Is there a blue arrow on your screen? Yes, I see. Anybody know what that 74.4 is? You hams in the front row know. If you go out late at night, you know SO50 is there because you've worked it several times before, but you go in your shack, insomnia hit, it's 1:30 in the morning, you put your parka on, go outside and try to work SO50, you key your mic, no response, nothing. Turn your channel and shoot it, transmit to it, the tone 74.4, and turn its 10-minute receiver on. You become the control operator of a satellite. Is that not cool? That is cool. You think I wasn't scared crubless the first time I did that? I thought, oh God, it's going to crash in my koi pond. The handcuffs from AMSAT are going to be tight. A fellow ham might not know how to do this. Orange County astronomers know how to do that. Shoot it at 74.4, go back to 67.0. You have just turned on its 10-minute timer. Very cool. Very cool. Probably one of the reasons why the batteries have lasted so long. It's not always transmitting. It's only transmitting when we turn it on for its 10-minute timer. AO91, the receive frequency is on 2 meters. Are we accommodating for Doppler on 2 meters? No, we're not. 145.96. We are accommodating for it on the transmit side. You're going to acquire it slightly below, just the opposite of the other satellite. There's your chart for it. It's on all the time, 67.0. Okay, we're almost through a part one. You know when it's going to be there. You know where you are on the Earth. You know your grid square. You've gone to my site or AMSAT and got your radio programmed. Wait for a break in the action, a break in the conversation. Key your mic. Kilo 6 Lima. Use your own call sign, please. Kilo 6 Lima Charlie Sierra, Delta Mike 13. And in the audience there, any AMSAT members here this evening? Anybody AMSAT? Okay, we can talk. Some AMSAT older members don't like me saying handheld or demo. You know what? It's a third of a second of airtime. By saying handheld, you're letting the other satellite workers know, hey, here's somebody with low power. Sounds like he might be new, he or she might be newer. Let's let him in. If you say demo, that tells us that, hey, here's somebody that's working in front of a group. Let's let them get this contact made. Made a little survey, 94.7% of amateur radio satellite operators are just fine people. We're not going to knock on your door if you step on us. We're not. We've all made the mistake. We've all keyed our mic to do this and forgot to turn the volume up, or didn't have the earpiece fully plugged in. We have all accidentally stepped on or confused and stepped on someone else's conversation. We're not coming to your door. I'll email you. I will email you. I say, gosh darn, you sounded great from Southern California. You'll get that type of support. Don't let mic fright get in the way. Don't let, and we've all made those mistakes. And once you start working satellites, it is your and my responsibility. It is your and my responsibility to report what we hear to this page. Just blue is good, red is bad. This is the AMSAT Oscar live status page. This not only lets you and I know what satellites are up and running, it lets control operators or owners of satellites on the other side of the planet know what's up and running. So let's see here. Did I lose? Okay, I apologize. Up on the top, you'll find the AO27. Nothing's working for AO27. You'll see the AO91 line. Blue and red, blue and red, blue and red. I just hope those reds aren't people trying to work it at night. But yeah, when it's in the sun, it's going to work. Let's scroll down there to ISS data. That's the ISS packet radio in the service module, the Russian service module. A lot of red. It's misconfigured. We're working on it. ISS amateur television. The gear was just sent there last month. It's going to be up for us in a couple months. It's on 700 gig or 700 megahertz. But look, ISS FM, that's our crossband repeater. Look at that glorious blue all the way across. What will interrupt that, you might have a block of 2 or 3 days or a day where it's red. We turn off the amateur gear on the ISS when a mission is heading towards it or a mission leaving it, or if they're doing a spacewalk. So this glorious crossband repeater, in this last week, we haven't had a spacewalk. But before there, about 5 days ago, we did. That's why that was off for those 6 hours. Let's scroll down to all the way at the bottom. All the way at the bottom. There's that SO50. SO50. Look at that. 21 years old, all that blue. I missed, let's see, PO101. PO101, about 4 from the bottom. It's a crossband repeater like these others, but it's not on 24/7 for you. It goes into a schedule only a few hours a day. So you have to go to its Twitter feed. So it just adds another piece to the equation. Work these other ones first, and then maybe put PO101 in there also. It's easy to enter your data in here. There's the submission report. You click up, down, and downlink active. There's a drop-down list for all the satellites. It reverts to the last 15 minutes of time, and your call sign, K6JEY. Who's K6? Hold on a second. Siri, who is K6JEY? Whoa, we know that guy? Is he here this evening? It's a fellow ham. Well, he was working the ISS a couple days ago. K6JEY. Special guest appearance, no extra charge, Reza. Here's the Twitter feed for P0101. So it's just showing you these segments of time it's on. So, and they're not always over North America. So it's active, it's working. Requires a 141.3 on the uplink. There is on the upper right, there is the QSL card. It's the size of a postcard that you can receive, pun intended, by just hearing the ISS. By just hearing it, you're a shortwave listener, just a listener. But then when you work it with amateur radio or packet, you can get another QSL card for all those modes. There are slow scan TV projects happen several times a year. Do not be offended. Do not be offended when the Russians do one and it's only on over Russia. Don't take that as a slight. It's nothing political. As we are, they're proud of what they've accomplished in space. They might have some projects, 2 or 3 a year, that are Russia centric. So, but don't be offended by that. But I still monitor just in case they forget to turn it off when it goes over North America. Slow scan TV projects from the ISS can be as easy to receive as holding up your radio to your smartphone, and just no interconnecting cables, no Windows drivers, no sound card. It can be as simple as that. This is the image I got, just holding my radio up to a smartphone with a $3 app on it. How cool is that? Now, look very closely at the gentleman's white t-shirt in the very center. See those little white interference blips? If you do this, please leave your dog in the house. That's when our dear dog Freya barked twice when I was in the backyard. So I'm going to cherish this forever. Freya passed away last year. I'm going to cherish this forever with those defects, just because it reminds me of her. But without the dog there, that would have been a perfect image. This is from last year, a Russian project last year. Yeah, okay. Oh, shoot. Ray, I thought I turned this off. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I thought I turned this off. Oh, Eris wants me to talk more about the ISS. Oh, okay. All right. Excuse me a second. I will right now. All right. The International Space Station. There is our 2-meter 440 antenna on the US Columbus module. Almost looks like tape measure elements, doesn't it? That's not me. That's not me in the spacesuit. Here are our 3 antennas on the Russian service module. Eris posts this page for you of status of their equipment. Just know that the crossband repeater is in the Columbus module, and it's on right now. The slow scan TV is stowed. It's we need to reset it. Here are the frequencies for the International Space Station. You don't need to write these down. It's on a PDF on my site. There's the crossband repeater right in the center, and that frequency is not wrong. It's 145.99 uplink, and you're going to receive on 437-800. So if you're using a scanner, or just tune to 437-800 day after tomorrow at 2:46 in the afternoon, you'll hear it. You are going to hear it. You'll hear us talking back and forth on it. All right, Orange County, that's the end of part 1 of 3 parts. Raise a nose. That's just a running joke. I apologize. Somebody unmute themselves, or somebody in the room. Let me know. Is there any questions you might have on this? I can see you in the room. Anybody heard the ISS or worked a satellite before in the room? I can see your hands. Cool. Anybody think they might want to just turn their scanner on or radio on this week and just hear the ISS that hasn't done it before? 73 hands went up. All right, cool. It's just a cool aspect of this hobby that you don't need to get a license to hear it. Any questions, Raisa, that you have?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions, but I guess the folks in person are running late. Let's see if there are any in-person questions. John, I see you've held the microphone. Okay. So there is this, first of all, people want to know your website. You mentioned a couple of times. So if you could.
It's in the chat box.
Thank you very much. It's in the chat box. It is worksat.com, WORK, then a hyphen, SAT for satellite.com. My amateur radio call sign is K6LCS, Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie Sierra. If you go there, K6LCS.com, you'll go to the same place. Here's my very busy, I'm ADHD, here's my very busy website. If you go to the front page, right there in the middle is the SAT frequencies and a quick start tutorial. Everything I talked about these last couple hours is right there in that 4-page tutorial. So I guess I just could have put that on your website and had dinner this evening. No, anyway, go to my front page, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there is a link called Satellite Show Citations, and there is everything we talked about this evening in chronological order of the session. Everything from the elk antennas, arrow antennas, there's a plan on there that students made a Yagi antenna out of barbed wire pieces and successfully worked the International Space Station. So you don't need to spend $160 to get that arrow antenna or the elk antenna. If you, yeah, something like that you can use to receive. And then there's a phone number on my website. There's email contacts. Thank you for the thank you work-sat.com. In addition to, of course, AMSAT, AMSAT.com. .org, amsats.org. I'm sorry. Thank you for the question.
Sure. Okay. So, Clint, you mentioned that they turn off the amateur radio equipment on ISS on a special occasion. So is this on the astronauts checklist before going suited up, turn it off, and then do they forget to turn it on sometimes, or is it regularly attended to?
There have been that type of errors. This is very much so in their daily routines. If you go to the Japanese Space Agency's website or the European Space Agency or our own NASA, you can pull up the daily schedule of the astronauts. They aren't just sitting up there reading their Kindles. They are busy up there with scores and scores of projects. A lot of them improving the health of us here on Earth, plant-wise, medicine-wise. But yes, this is very much involved. And NASA and all the countries involved, they want to be in complete control of power, sparks, power consumption when their people are outside. And of course, in the communications critical time of a station approaching it, or a mission approaching it, or a mission leaving. So yeah, very much on their minds. That's a great question. 174 shows. That's a wonderful question. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's this other question. So one of the ideas of putting the amateur radio on ISS was that it could be used in emergency purposes given their main equipment fails. Has that ever happened?
Not for an emergency, but again, a few years ago, they did do some routine maintenance and upgrade to the commercial network, to their commercial comms, and used us for a couple days as backup. So they do respect our equipment, but that it's there. You know, as long as it's not a power failure ISS wide, yeah, our equipment's there and ready for them. And again, they all know, and the slow scan TV not being configured properly right now, you know how intimate, how many different settings there are on these HTs and these mobile rigs. We just misconfigured it. It was an error. We'll take the blame.
By the way.
Oh, that's right. This is a 63rd anniversary of Yuri Gagarin's circumventing the globe. We had a Yuri Gagarin party here a few years ago in the backyard. We had a great time. Yeah, Yuri Gagarin, the first human to circumvent the Earth in a satellite. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Did that come from the chat room, or it come from it came from my beautiful wife? Okay, cool. Did I answer your question all right?
Yes, that answered the question. John, are there any in-audience questions?
Last call.
Did I put them to sleep?
No, they're still animated.
The gang way there in the back there, way in the back. You know, they don't charge more for the seats in the front. Thank you for coming out for this. I really appreciate it. Reza, how'd you find me to do a satellite show for the astronomers?
Well, I was searching about how to work out satellites, and I saw your work with that school. I believe that's the one that was very successful among the first ones, and then followed up the links to your current website. Yeah.
Outstanding. I think you realize I'd rather be there in person. It's just although we're close by. Zoom, and you doing your simulcast Zoom, it's getting. I hate to admit that I wasn't using Zoom a lot before the pandemic, but it gets people involved who don't drive, who are ill, who just can't get out at night. So doing these meetings simulcasts can only increase membership and interest. And man, John's slideshow beforehand, I'm sitting, my jaw was just dropping of the equipment he was using, and it didn't look like it was horribly expensive equipment to get into astrophotography. Is John still here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
John, where should a beginner go? Should I come to Orange County Astronomer meeting and find out what I should be doing for equipment, or is there a retailer you like and trust?
Oh, that's a good question. To be honest, my wife sneaked that mount into my life. She asked me some questions while I was at work, and I thought, oh wow, she wants to know about the telescope. And then next thing you know, a month later, she says, go into this store. I ordered you something silly, just pick it up, please. And I didn't believe them when they told me what I was supposed to pick up. So my wife did that. But I would guess I'd recommend Orange County uh, Telescope because I've talked to them and find them. That's one place to look. I really, you're kind of asking a person who has like 5 telescopes, how to get one. It's going to be, there's I guess there's probably this group here. There's people who can answer questions about that. So I hate to give a short answer at the moment.
Okay.
I don't want to talk forever.
That's funny. Your spouse, I'm amateur radio. You key your mic, you don't see who you talk to. My wife will get in front of a group of 10, 50, 1,000 and talk about either her travels to Tibet or talk about the Rotary Foundation. But I can't get her to key a mic. Because she can't see her audience to get that recognition or that just that one-on-one contact. And what'd your mom tell you, dear? Oh, her mom always taught her to not talk to strange men, and there are strange men in the amateur radio hobby. John, thank you. And that slideshow is just phenomenal. And apparently, you do this several times a year for your group. That makes it even more exciting. Reza,
yes,
should we start part 2?
Before we start part 2, the last question I have is: have you ever attempted moon bounce comms?
No, but fascinating. And there's hams here in Southern California doing it. That is essentially shooting your signal to a celestial body and having that signal bounce back to you. I don't have the equipment for it. It's not on my bucket list, but it's just something I admire. If you just search for moon bounce, one word, amateur radio, you'll see some, at YouTube also, just some wonderful things that can happen.
Yeah, I'm sure here K6JEY wants to say a few words about that.
Oh, yes, JEY, you still here with us?
Yeah, he's right here. I've been doing moon bounce since about 1991.
Whoa!
And I have Oscar satellites WAS number 17.
So you were probably bored silly this in the last couple hours.
No, just satellites have changed over the years.
Okay. There are still digital satellites, Morse code only satellites, SSB satellites. What we talked about this evening were just the easy to access ones to pique interest into those other modes.
I need to turn the equation around and say, if you're interested in doing astronomy, then join OCA and go into our loaner scope program, rent a few scopes till you find the one you want, and then spend your money. Don't spend your money first. It's a big mistake. Okay, second is that if you're interested in astronomy, you can go with us up to Orange Valley Radio Observatory for a tour and 2 nights of observing, and do that on June 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Extraordinary. Great plugs, great in the amateur radio area also. You do research before you.
You may not transmit from that site on any frequency except cell phones.
Okay. And the economic advice.
There's a few large receivers there.
Okay. Same thing with amateur radio. Do some research. Talk to fellow amateur radio operators before you go to Amazon. Don't get anything off of eBay. A lot of eBay merchants are just out for the dollar. They don't know what they're selling. They're just selling boxes. There are some respected merchants on Amazon, but we've got wonderful folks at a ham radio outlet Anaheim. They're still at 933 North Euclid Avenue, half a mile south of the 91. They will help you. On Saturdays, just know that it's crazy on Saturdays there. You don't get the personal, you just can't help it. You can't answer all questions for everybody on a Saturday. But if you can get there Monday through Friday, they can give you more time and they will have intelligent answers for you. Outstanding. Reza, we're almost out. I don't have time for one more question.
Yes.
One more question.
Are there any more questions? Okay, we have Chris N9RIN saying hi as another ham radio here at OCA. Well, thank you very much for being with us. And yeah, they're expressing their feelings that, how ham radio was used to be about making equipment, while nowadays it's all off the shelf buyings. And a few stores have closed apparently in San Diego.
Not closed.
So,
not closed.
yeah.
The lease payment went up 75%. So it's still HRO. HRO is still nationwide for us. They still are the largest amateur radio dealership on the planet. They have the buying clout that individuals can't match. So no, HRO and for us right here in Anaheim is wonderful. But yeah, it closed. The Burbank shop, same thing. The lease expired and it's just way too expensive. It was a much smaller area and no parking. So we've got Anaheim, and of course they're available for you. They get stuff to you. If it's more than $100, it's free shipping, ground. Anyway, HRO is still alive and well and not going away.
Okay, wonderful. Again, thank you very much, Clint. Are we ready for part 2 now?
I'll see you folks at midnight.
Yes.
We'll decode some Keplerian data, and thank you for the invite. Thank you for the courtesy laughs. I appreciate it. I'm sorry for the poor jokes, Reza.
No. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Clint, for entertaining us for this long that you did. It was a great talk. We learned a lot. I'm sure a lot of people are motivated now to get their handhelds out or maybe buy a handheld and start working along their telescopes, of course.
Of course.
With that said, I would also like to thank all the attendees who stayed with us, and I hope you all get the most out of this. Thank you very much, and see you all next month. Bye-bye, everybody.
K6LCS 73. 73 means good wishes to you all in Ham Talk. Thank you very much, Orange County.
Thank you. 73.
What a great group. What a great group.
7-3.